I once danced on the moon when space and time, when space and time, when space and time no longer mattered. Letting go of everything, free from the physical, when I was only energy.
Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place.
Call is now being recorded.
Hey, listeners, it's Philip Wilkerson and Hillard McMorris back with another episode of Positive Philter. We're going to attack our Q&A episode that we said that we were going to deliver on in our last episode. But before we kind of go into the questions, I just have some announcements. So that poem, that was the intro, is a poem called High by my friend Roberto Carlos Martinez. And it's in his book Inconsolable, which is available on iTunes. So if you want to support his art, you can go ahead and buy that book. He's a good friend of mine, former colleague of mine, and also a Mason counseling graduate. So I always want to support my friends. If you find that these questions, Q&A sessions are really cool, give us a shout out. You can either use the hashtag AskPositiveFilter on Twitter or call the phone number 571-336-6560. If you like the podcast and you really find like you vibe with it, you can please rate or review it on iTunes or Stitcher. Reviews and comments and things like that let us know that you're supporting the podcast, but also gives us some direct feedback. And if you want to rock the Positive Philter out there in public, we also have T-shirts for sale. And lastly, I know in the fatherhood episode, I went through a whole list of fathers. After I listened through it, there's two particular fathers that I left off. It's my boy Wayne Too Nasty, who was a co-host or a guest of mine on episode 4, and Justin McGovern. Just really good dads. Additionally, as I said last time, if you are a good dad and you know me, I just want to let you know that keep it up. There's so many dads out there that are inspiring me that I see on Facebook or see on social media every day doing what dads do best, and I really, really appreciate it. So, Hillard, are you ready to get into these questions?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Okay, so the first one is from Molly Makovac Waldeck. Funny story about Molly. I remember running out to another friend of mine out in D.C., and that friend of mine asked, did I know who she was? And I said, of course, you're Molly Makovac, and it wasn't Molly. Remember that, Hillard?
Yeah.
But in life, I reconnected with Molly, so I tell her that story is pretty funny. But she gave us some questions, and let's go with the first question. She said, what are your thoughts about technology these days?
All right. So you want me to go first?
Yeah.
So my thoughts about technology, I think it's a good and a bad thing. It definitely improves and makes a lot of things easier. It's a way to get around. I mean, you move to a new city or to a new area and using a GPS, which sometimes in some cities it doesn't always work, right? But it'll get you close enough, especially if you don't know where you're going. So that's a great use of technology. But then, it can also, there's also a con side of it, a bad side of it, where we're always like looking down. We're always in our phones. We're kind of disconnected from society at times. And I always have my phone on me. And not only do I have my phone on me, but then I also have I have a Fitbit watch now. So everything like comes through that watch. So when that watch vibrates, I know somebody just sent me a text message, or my phone's ringing, or there's a notification on IG or something. And so like it's hard for me not to look at my watch if my phone isn't in my hand. You know what I mean? So it's like
right.
Just
it's a balance between its presence, and it's a balance between dependence and usage, you know, and
right.
that's a good point about, you know, creating a balance, like being hooked on. I have to consciously know and be aware of myself with my use of my phone. I still, to this day, when I'm at dinner with Maggie, I hand her my phone to put in her purse so I can be engaged in the conversation, because it's so easy, like as you said, to be engrossed in your phone and then lose touch with the present. And then also, like Molly asked about for the kids when they introduce them, I'm really, really struggling. I'll be quite honest with you about my son's use of the iPad or use of TV. It's awesome to see the kids, you know, use the technology to learn, and they're smart, and they navigate the phones and all that stuff so well. But it's also kind of scary because, like, you see, like, they don't, you know, they're so engrossed in, like, these, like, Paw Patrol or the TVs or the iPads. So I think my advice for this, you know, for the Positive Filter listeners is just trying to find a balance. One way I find a balance with the technology is giving myself ways where I put it away, or
Right.
as I said with the dinner thing, just limiting time. You know, I'm not gonna have my son in front of the TV all day. I try to get outside as much as I can, so that he doesn't like to be on TV. He wants to be outside. So, I mean, it's a balance.
Right. So does Bennett have an iPad that he uses, or does
He uses our iPad. It's
yeah.
not. It's bad. He goes iPad. You know what I'm saying? He says that, John. So he knows the iPad. It's not particularly his. You know, he doesn't have his own. It's, you know, our iPad with some kids apps on it, but it's not his specifically. It's not his iPad.
Right. And so Maddie, she has an iPad, but I don't give it to her all the time. And you know, she uses it, but she does like go for my phone a lot. And I have a picture that she took, because she started figuring out how to use the camera, and she took a selfie. And the craziest thing, like, I was standing behind her, and she had it, and she saw me in the picture, like, and she was like, Dada, and I looked, and she snapped the camera. And so, like, I might post that picture on IG or something, but it was just crazy that she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
kind of scary, right?
Well, it's scary, but it's also like
they're born into it.
That's what I'm saying. They're born into it. This is their generation with the technology.
Right.
So, this is one of those times where I do feel like the old timer, like back in my day, we didn't have that kind of thing. And it's true. You know, we don't. But I think the way to integrate it is, you know, use it as the tool that they're intended for, technology. But like anything else is moderation. And I think when you see that, I think you can see the opposite when it's a little bit too far, is when the kids start throwing tantrums over it. You know, it's like, oh my God, this kid is addicted to it, you know. So, you know, like I'm trying to tell the listeners, no one's perfect. I want to say that when we're telling these what our advice is for this, you know, this is just our 2 cents. You know, we're not the experts on anything. We're growing and learning as we go along ourselves. But that's just kind of my 2 cents. Balance. It's great, but in a balance.
Yep. I agree with you,
and there's our next question. This is still Molly. She said, would you prefer to be an air creature or a sea creature? I don't know. That's a random ass question. Honestly, I like the water, so I'd be a sea creature.
Well, shout out to Molly. And I appreciate this question, because I do like random questions like this. I'm going to take the air. I can't swim right now, and I ain't that fond of the water. So, unless I'm taking a shower, so I'm going to take the air. You get somewhere faster anyway. Like, you can go anywhere. Like, I feel like you can't go everywhere with the sea. Like, maybe you can. I don't know. But I just feel like there's certain places you just can't reach.
But water covers more of the world. So
I agree, but then you have deserts too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how you gonna get there? Like,
I don't know.
You know,
I love the water.
I mean, you might have a stream that runs there, but like, what if that stream just runs dry? Like, you hit a drought. You know, I'm just saying. Like, you in the air, you can get everywhere and anywhere, and you can get there fast. Like, I would be the fastest person to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I'll just fly out to that journey, like boom, right there.
Well, also,
my flag.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like
how you gonna get there?
You'll be safer to see because people really don't, so much water and so deep. No one knows. Someone wants to shoot you down or something like that. They can because they'll see you. If you're an air creature.
Man, you know how many random stuff is in the sea? There's creatures in there, man. I know because we ain't even hit, you can't hit the bottom of certain oceans and certain seas, right? Certain places. We don't know what's down there. So I'm good. I don't even want to know. There's too many random stuff that can kill you.
Well, we'll agree to disagree on that one. Thank you, Molly, for making us argue about being a sea or air creature.
I love that one.
Another difference in our friendship. Okay, so this is from Jim, who likes to be addressed as LL Cool J Feynman. How do you work from home with the 2-year-old yelling daddy all day? Well, luckily for me, I don't have to work from home. And Bennett will yell daddy all day. I'm going to go with the assumption that I wouldn't get any work done if I work from home. It's just not possible. Unless he takes his nap. I met a stay-at-home dad earlier today. Not earlier today, earlier this week. And really he was like, when you work from home, then you're not working a 9-to-5 schedule. Either you have to get up really early and work if you're, stay-at-home dad and working at the same time simultaneously. You'll have to either work really early before they wake up, during your nap, and stay up all night. So you kind of just make it work. But literally when they're yelling daddy all day, you're not going to get any work done.
Right. Yeah. I don't really have I don't even know if I have an opinion on this because, like you said, I'm not I don't work from home. And so if I was a stay-at-home dad or I was working from home, I don't know how I would avoid Maddie yelling daddy all day. That would be tough. I don't know how much I would get done and how productive I would get done because there's days when I'm at work and I feel like some days I'm just not that productive at work and I don't have Maddie there yelling daddy. So,
right.
That's a tough one. That's a good question, but it's a tough one.
Yeah. And this is a really serious, not serious, but one I think that does actually relate. He says, how do you stay positive in social media world where you rely on the approval of others? And if you don't receive validation in the form of likes, shares, comments, or posts other than from your core team that you always receive likes, shares, or comments from. So this speaks upon the movement of spreading positivity. Obviously, in this podcast, Instagram, all this, what I'm doing with Positive Philter, it's about putting myself out there, and it feels good to receive validation, getting likes and shares and comments because I know that lets me know that people are supporting me tangibly. But my main thing that I have to address myself is that, and this is me, a teachable moment for myself, is that just because someone doesn't like, share, or comment doesn't mean they don't support you. I have lots of people that have sent me support offline. It's just that social media is not their cup of tea. They don't feel the need to actively engage on social media. And what I have to realize is that even the people that are in my circle of my life, my closest friends, might not necessarily like, share, or comment. Does not mean that they support me less. There's different ways of supporting. Maybe, out there in the world beyond me, they're telling their friends about it in casual conversation. But it's really hard because a lot of doing the positive, having a separate Instagram page is reliant on engagement. I'm putting myself out there in this social media realm for engagement, but it might not be the engagement I want. And that's something I struggle with because, I know within myself I exhibit some attention-seeking behavior, getting them likes, you know what I'm saying? And it feels good. It feels, it does. It's not gonna lie. Like, I know I can't speak for anyone else, but I'm speaking for myself. It feels good when you drop a picture and people like it and share it, and it feels like you have an audience. It feels it's definitely attention-seeking behavior, and I have enough self-awareness, but I'm learning more and more that does not drive my mission. If you drop a picture or a comment, or I post an ill filler award and that gets one like, that does not diminish the impact that may have, because you never know who's still looking out there. You never know. I literally have had some people come back to me and say, "Oh, I love your ill fill awards." And I was like, I had no clue that you're even looking at that. I didn't know. My dad just told me recently, he was like, "Son, I really enjoy listening to your podcast." I have no clue. My dad's not on social media. My dad has a burner phone. Right. He doesn't have a real phone.
Right.
So, he's got the old 97 flip phone.
Good,
but
man.
I'm just saying, like, but
you got
that's a good. No, you got the chirp. You got the drug dealer phone, like the pay for a minute phone. But the point is that doesn't. The advice out there, which I'm, practicing when I preach or giving advice out there, is that just because you don't get likes or shares or comments does not, diminish your impact. And it also doesn't equate your worth. Like, your self-worth is not equal to likes.
Right.
Which I'm saying out loud because it makes me, I had to say this to myself.
Right. And I mean, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I mean, as long as you don't, social media is here, right? We live in that world, and if we really analyze and try to dissect it, yes, it is like you're seeking some type of validation on some level. As long as it's not like you said, it's not the only reason or the only thing, or if you don't get a certain amount of likes or whatever, you just start to feel a certain type of way. If it's not the driving force of, okay, if I'm not getting this, that means people don't like me. Or if I don't hit this certain number or whatever, or if no one shares this, if that's, as long as it's not that, then I feel like it's okay. Don't like you said, don't rely on it for approval, for people's approval. It's not necessary. It shouldn't be necessary that you need people's approval anyway to be the person that, it goes to your living now for other people instead of living for yourself. And that's an exhausting life. Like, I don't want to live according to nobody else's standards, especially if it's going against my foundation and what I believe in. So it's just, like you said, it's just, as long as you ain't putting up, certain things, you're really, seeking, and I know I might hit some people's buttons and they might have, do this or whatever, but, not having a great day, or, something like that. And,
they're fishing, they're fishing for something,
They throw a status out there or something, they're fishing. And it's just and then I hate when I see in the comments, praying for you. Praying for what? They ain't even tell you what they're going through. What you praying? You don't know.
Right.
I just that
right.
stuff. It's you really seeking and you really want this attention, and that's when it can get to that point. And again, this is my opinion. I'm just one person. Like you said, this is your opinion. You share your opinion. So I could be totally wrong. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong.
My quick answer and my quick summarization of that too is that social media presence does not equal self-worth. You are worth more than a status. You're worth more than likes. And just the last point about that, so we move on to the next question, is maybe because someone likes all your stuff doesn't mean they necessarily are authentically your friend either.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a great point.
someone can like all your pictures and all that stuff, but then when times is rough, they're not there, and the person that necessarily doesn't like your stuff on social media could be that friend that's behind the scenes that always got your back. And I'm not putting out names there, but like I said, there's people that never like or share or anything, but I know if I call them right now and I need genuine help, they got my back. So it's a two-edged sword, and it's a lesson I'm learning. It's particularly I'm learning this really, really thoroughly right now as I put myself out there in this Positive Filter podcast, is that who really has my back and don't not necessarily equates to sharing or not.
Right.
Okay, next question. Can male and females be just friends? And what are the rules to having friends of the opposite sex? The short answer is yes. Male and females can be friends. Particularly, I have lots of female friends outside of my marriage. I think the only rule that I'm going to say before, I'm not going to do a long tangent, is that authentically, the female friends that I have in my life are not hidden from my wife. Thus meaning, if I have a female friend that's outside of my wife is fully knowledgeable about that female friend. There's no hidden agenda, and I'm totally upfront with it, because the time that you introduced, for me, the time that you had to hide any kind of relationship, that means it's not in a good place, and it gets you in trouble. And that's where my coworker fits, and I try to tell him that, like, you can have friends of the opposite sex as long as you have total transparency with your partner.
Right. And so I agree with that. And my response to that question is yes as well. And for the only thing I would just add to that is, your spouse should be comfortable with that relationship.
100%. Right.
So
exactly.
that would be the only thing that and if your spouse does not, then have a conversation, like, if especially if you don't want to lose that friendship, like, what can I do to show you, like, this is just a friendship or whatever. But, like, communicate and try to figure that one out, so. Yeah.
And throwing a wrench into it, I think it's easiest when your partner is actually cool with the person of the opposite sex that you're friends with. I definitely agree that it is fishy that if you have a friend of the opposite sex and you introduce that to your partner and that person's acting weird, I would feel like there's an agenda. Like, let me rephrase. Like, so if I have a female friend that's not Maggie, and I introduce this female friend to Maggie, and that female friend is not cool with my wife or doesn't act friendly toward my wife, then I think there's something fishy going on. And in general, majority of my female friends have all of them have a positive relationship with my wife, which makes us all friends. So it's kind of easier.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
I see where
my 2 cents.
from.
That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, this next question is from Josh Brady, my neighbor. He says, how do you help friends when you realize they're afraid of something? I don't know. I mean, you can go further and further along with this, but I'm going to stick toward one aspect of fear. I said, how do you help someone realize when they're afraid of trying something new? I think it's just exposure and encouragement. And I would particularly break it down when you have a friend that's afraid of doing something new in regards to being creative. I have lots of friends that hopefully through my podcast, I'm inspiring to try their own adventures and just put themselves out there. I think you lead by example or expose them, tell them to just try it, maybe support them with that fear. But at the same time, have some empathy. Like, don't just diminish that. Don't make them feel like their fear is stupid,
Right.
So, validate their fear. Like, I understand how this felt. I was afraid too in this instance. Try to show some empathy there. I think that's the best way you can help a friend when they're afraid of something. Is showing empathy, showing them that they can get over it with support, that you got their back, but also don't, make them feel dumb. Because, sometimes for someone to admit that they're afraid of something is a big step. Especially admit that they have fears of someone else, because that's kind of sometimes could be embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree. Just encourage them, you know, and encouragement can come in many different ways, in many different forms. Don't be too pushy. I would say don't be too pushy. But just be there and support them, encourage them, you know, and if and when needed, like you said, talk to them about the fears and just empathize with them about, you know, what they're going through, just so you can help them. But yeah. So.
Okay, and Justin McGovern, shout out to Justin. I gave him a shout out earlier about being a really good dad, but he's also a good friend of mine. He said, when you've been at a crossroads of reacting positively or negatively towards someone, so I guess a particular person, and you went negative, why did you do that? If you can go back and react positively, what would you do differently and why? I don't have I guess my reaction to people that are negatively, I don't say I'm overtly a mean person. I don't think I am. So I'd say my negative interactions toward people is when someone's mean toward me. I internalize it, give them power over me, and I took it to heart and marinate on it. Usually when someone says something mean to me, I internalize it, and I think I perseverate it or I don't let it go. So maybe I'll say in the past, going back to my example we did earlier about race, when someone used to say I talk white or act white, negatively, what I did in that situation is I held on to that a lot, very strongly. I perseverated on it. I said, why did that person feel that way about me? What's wrong with me? That person must be correct. And I just perseverated and think about it, obsess about it. And if I can go back in a time machine and talk to myself when someone says something negative to me in that regard, I think what I would do is what we talked about in that episode is really look at what was the basis for their comment, what was, if there's any legitimacy to their comment, and if not, don't perseverate on it. Let it go.
But
I'll really say let it go.
But in the moment, you'll be able to do that?
You said if you can go back.
Easy to look back. You know, hindsight 2020. I mean, let's be real here and let's be honest. Like in the moment, you could do that.
Well, I think that not in the moment, but I think what I guess he's referring is you can go back into that situation and react positively.
Oh,
that's what I would do.
Okay.
And then after you go back and react positively by letting stuff go, be ready for that comment or things to come up and again. Because I think when you have the crossroads of reacting negatively and positively, situations are going to reoccur. That's not going to be the only instance where something bad happens. So then I actively learn from that and move forward. And that's just words to my own self. Yes. So when's the time when you've been at a crossroads about reacting positively and negatively and you went negative?
What? Do you want just one? I mean,
we just want
you know
one.
Me. My friends know me. I'm a hothead, man. I could be a hothead. Like I've grown. Like I really have. Like, and I really try not to. And I think like, especially going into like my mid 20s now. Like I really make sure I don't. I really try hard not to react negatively towards something. But when I do it, they hit my button. They found that button and they pushed it. Maybe they found it on accident, but they found it and they pushed it and boom, like I just, I blew up. Not saying that it's right. And I think I did it to get, and I did it, and it's not I think I did it. I know I did it to get them to back off. So it's basically a defense mechanism, like, hey, like back off. Like, but if I could go back and react positively, I would basically try to explain myself. And not even just like blowing up. Then sometimes like I just shut down. Like I will shut down like that Control Alt Delete, man, like a computer. Like shoot, I'm done. Yeah. Like I'm not talking. I would look you dead in your face. Matter of fact, I would look through you at times.
Right.
To get me to that point. And so it's just going back and explaining myself and just getting them to understand where I'm coming from. And I feel like once people feel like they're being heard, you definitely your emotions go down and you kind of level back out. But, like you said, just making sure, like, life has a funny way of just having things reoccur again and teaching you. Like, if you don't learn from that lesson the first time, you know, it'll come back around. And even if you do, then you still might get that opportunity to show that you did learn in the moment. Now it's like, all right, let's try to, show what you learned. But for me, it's just communication. Like, that would be the one thing that I would go back, to make sure that I did and react in a positive way, is just kind of explain myself, and just control myself better. Not shut down, communicate, and not get angry, but still try to be open, within the conversation.
Right. All right, so Hillary, we got a couple more questions, but I think we're just, since we're hitting a pretty good time and a good momentum, let's just answer one more for the listeners and save the last two for the next Q&A. So this is from an anonymous person. This listener wanted to remain anonymous. So they say, how do you find ways to put your own struggles aside and find patience to help someone else struggling with their own issues? And this is really good. I necessarily don't adhere to, necessarily putting your struggles aside completely. I like the phrase when, you don't have to be perfect to help someone else. I remember in counseling, I can't remember the particular person's name, but they used to quote themselves as being a wounded healer. Wounded healer as being, because we have wounds. We have wounds ourselves, but we can heal someone else. But I definitely do think that, to help someone else, when you need patience, you need to be patient with yourself. Give yourself a break before you can help others. I definitely find times where I feel better about myself when I help someone else, not to say when someone else is worse off than me. But being able to sometimes disconnect from your own problems and help someone else with their problems, that sense of what you call altruism, it definitely helps me find patience when someone's struggling on their own, is when you're able to kind of distract yourself from your own problems. But I think one of the main techniques I would say is just realizing that, just because you have your own struggles, maybe putting them to the side temporarily could help someone else, but you can't completely ignore them, because the age-old thing is that you can't love someone else until you love yourself. And I believe that you can't really fully, I wouldn't say you have to be completely healed, but you can't help someone else if you're not actively working on helping yourself. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but you need to have enough self-awareness of trying to improve yourself to help improve others. I think that's kind of my 2 cents about setting your own struggles aside to help others. And I think it gives you better patience when to be patient with others, you need to be patient with yourself. You can't be so hard on yourself and be hard on someone else. A lot of people do that too. They set expectations of others that they don't set for themselves, or they set really high standards for themselves and they burn themselves out when they try to help others. So I don't know. That's just my kind of 2 cents for that one. What about you?
Man, I feel like we agreed on everyone except the air creature or the sea creature. But I mean, like what you're saying is,
I'm telling you, man, that's the hottest topic. Shout out to Molly, man. That
made us
argue over some creatures.
That was the question of the episode for sure. But I mean, I totally agree, and I totally forgot about that too, the wounded healer. But yeah, I mean, you're right, like, and yeah, you have to just, you got to, before you can help somebody else, you have to be, in a space or in a place, where, you can help yourself or you're healthy enough. And, it's not, you'll have struggles. This school year, I mean, I've had, like, this is probably some of the toughest struggles that I've had. And to put that aside, when I walk into that school building to help these students and counsel them through that. There were days where it was tough, and there were days where I focused on not seeing as many students because I knew I wouldn't do that great of a job with them that day. So I focused more on my paperwork and focused on those type of things that I had to get done anyway, instead of doing those students a disservice and talking to them knowing that I probably wasn't in the most patient mood, or I wasn't going to be in with them that counseling session or that moment to help them in the best way I possibly could. So I just like, you know what, I'm gonna take a break, and just recognizing that, and I think that's big. If you can recognize that within yourself and know that, then it sets you up to help people and be more patient with them when you have the opportunity to help them. So, but man, whoever sent that question, that's a great question. I don't know why you were anonymous, man. Like,
I don't know, maybe they're going through something themselves and they didn't want to put themselves out there. But
right,
that is a good question.
Really fantastic.
And I think I appreciate everyone that asked questions. Like I said, please engage. We're going to touch base on these Q&A episodes every now and then. This is really good to give us some structure for this episode. We love the questions. Keep them coming. Sure. Ask Positive Filter on Twitter. The phone number, again, is 571-336-6560. You can leave a voicemail on that phone number with questions or a message for Positive Filter. Like I said, if you enjoy these podcasts, rate and review on iTunes or Stitcher. That helps, show us your support. And, we'll be back. I think our next episode we're looking forward to, we're going to be, I think, not wrapping up, but talking about the impact of Holberg's class. So we got our boy Justin on the next episode. So, so we're excited for that. And, any last parting words before we wrap up this episode, Hillard?
Man, just, support, like Phil said, Positive Filter on Instagram, on Facebook, not seeking validation, but just to spread the movement, man, so that everyone, just knows and hears this, because, especially in the day and time that we live in, man, we need as much positivity, with everything that's kind of going on in the world, and just the media just, constantly showing us hate through news articles and things like that, through TV. So, let's, counteract that with some positivity, man. So that's why I'm so big, and I appreciate Phil, having me now become a co-host on, the podcast, because to me, spreading positivity is such a major thing. Our kids need it, the future needs it. So,
there you go. Well, peace out and catch you later, everyone.
Yeah.
You have been listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Positive Filter was edited by Ronald Young Jr., host of Time Well Spent podcast and creator of Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Special thanks to Hillard McMorris. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends. Spreading positivity is a movement. Thanks for listening.